I personally have pulled up Alabama versus White. I've searched the term for compelling. I don't see it. You wouldn't be lying that it says the word compelling in Alabama versus White, would you? That'd be a really bad
told you
look.
that.
Well, maybe we should start with like your depth. I don't know where you get reasonable suspicion from compelling reason to believe Israel instigated. That seems to be a stretch.
Let's do cross exam. This is good, and I wanted to talk about this too. What's the legal difference? What's the standard for the legal difference, Rob, between reasonable suspicion and probable cause, and where does it come from?
Reasonable suspicion, I think, now correct me if I'm wrong. I am not a lawyer, right? And obviously you looked into this specific term, but this is my layman's understanding. Reasonable suspicion is usually used to like beat cops, right? It's a standard to be like, is there reasonable suspicion that you think there's a drug deal going on over there? And if so, there are very limited investigative steps you could take because you've met that lowest bar, which is reasonable suspicion. That's my understanding of it.
Wait a minute. You critiqued the idea that I had compelling reasons, and compelling reason at law, there are 5 standards for constituting burden of persuasion. We have 5 different standards of persuasion. We don't call them proof. We call them burden of persuasion.
Sure.
Are you familiar with what those are at all? Because that's the starting point for this debate.
No, I think the starting point would be defining the term compelling, right? And we're defining compelling in legal terms. This is all legal. So what are those 5 standards? Do you know? So to be clear,
if you need.
To be clear, you could read the 5 standards. I do not know. I'll fully admit that. Your argument that you're making here is that the term compelling in a legal sense means one of these 5 standards.
No, that's not right.
Okay, so
the 5 standards or burdens of persuasion are specific to domains of the law. And there are 2 investigative ones, and they're all graduated standards, so they're going up in both the quantity and the quality of evidence.
Okay.
You attacked, you said that at the investigative level, which is all we're debating here tonight, what you essentially did in your 10-minute opening statement is you told me that compelling, which is relative to an investigative standard, if we're taking it the correct way that I am tonight, should be thrown into the highest of the 3 criminal standards, which is dead wrong. And then I said, well, okay, what do you think the 5 burdens of persuasion are, and which one do you think we're operating out of tonight? And you said, well, I don't even know the 5 levels of persuasion. So if you're going to critique the way that I
no, it's a clever
as an investigative predicate means mode of opportunity.
No. It's a clever sleight of hand, right? There's no evidence that us are in a court of law here, correct?
How are you defining evidence? I'm defining it the legal way.
Okay, let's take out the term evidence. Are we in a court of law here, or are we just having a debate?
Did you say that there's no evidence?
I said it.
You said that there's no evidence, and I said, okay, this is relative to an
show me the
investigative
evidence.
predicate.
All right, fair enough. Show me. What I said was there's no evidence we are currently in a court of law. Provide the evidence that me, you, and James are in a court of law right now. Go ahead.
You just said that you wanted to define terms first, and you
right. And so what I did was
the Federal Rules of Evidence, Section 401. There are 2 very, very low bars for anything constituting evidence, and again, they constitute evidence in one of 5 rungs. Okay, which
I understand that. My claim is we're not in a court.
It's just let me define the first 2, the 2 prongs. They're really basic. If a fact has any tendency, it's intentionally low on the Federal Rules of Evidence to make any other fact more or less probable than it would be without the evidence. And number 2 element, if the fact is of consequence in determining the action. So basically, for the normies out there that are brainwashed to TV and movies thinking evidence is only material evidence, only direct evidence, and it's a super high bar, basically everything is evidence, legally speaking, among lawyers. And that's really, really important.
That's
and that's why the Federal Rules of Evidence.
That's an interesting non-response to what I was specifically saying. My point was that you're using the term
You said you wanted to define terms.
Right, please, let me finish my point. What I said was I wanted to define terms in the term compelling, and I said compelling to me basically means convincing, and I don't think that you've released the bar of convincing and saying convincing means reasonable suspicion, a specific legal term. I said the fact that you're trying to conflate that, we're not in a court. We still have to use terms that matter.
I'm
what
using
you're doing
the legal
is
terms.
please, you're doing this sleight of hand where you're saying, well, compelling to me means any evidence, right? So, for example, you read the 5 legal standards. Can you show me where it says the term compelling means one of these 5 legal standards? Go ahead.
Yes. Specifically, that's what I was trying to do. You're calling it a slide. You came into a debate on reasonable suspicion, which is the lowest burden of persuasion accorded by law,
Where's
by
the
the
topic
federal
say
rules
that?
of evidence. Wait, hold on. Let me finish. You came into a debate on reasonable suspicion, which is the lowest of the 5, and it means I'm reading from Supreme Court cases, any articulable fact supportive of any suspicion that an investigator might have. And then I asked you, well, what do you suppose, Rob, is the difference between reasonable suspicion standard and a probable cause standard, which I knew you'd throw at me. And you know what's even higher than a probable cause standard is a preponderance of the evidence standard, which is compellingness has different levels that you must reach, different evidentiary levels at each of these. So it's reasonable suspicion, which is where we were, which is what a police agency or an investigative agency operates.
I do want to jump in just to be sure that we're on the same page, Tim, because you had mentioned it during your opening, but it was on Saturday, August 15th at 2:45 p.m. that you messaged me. Let's debate whether there's compelling reason to believe Israel instigated / helped Tyler Robinson kill Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, what you're doing is you keep saying, no,
but
wait.
that's defined.
I give you plenty of time to speak. Let me have a chance. You just said you came into a debate in reasonable suspicion. I did not. You're just asserting that reasonable suspicion is the lowest standard. I don't disagree with that when it comes to legally. You haven't provided a nexus to the word compelling means reasonable suspicion. Even there, you were like, yeah, there is. And then you just went off about what reasonable suspicion means.
Compelling
so show
just
me
means
the link.
convincing.
Let me finish, please. So show me the link where there's some sort of Supreme Court decision or some sort of legalese that says the word compelling means reasonable suspicion or higher. Show me that.
Okay. Alabama versus White.
Okay,
is
what's
a
it say
Supreme Court
specifically?
case that says that there's an important difference. You asked for a Supreme Court case. Reasonable suspicion versus probable cause. And what it defines as compelling, since you asked, now let me answer. Alabama versus White. And if you have researchers or fact finders, look it up. Reasonable suspicion means at the investigative level, articulable facts that are lower in both quantity and quality than probable cause standard. Now, there are 2 separate probable cause standards. There's probable cause standards to get a warrant sworn out by a magistrate. Let's call it thin probable cause. And there's 6 standards if we differentiate between these 2. Then there's thicker probable cause standard, which is what we're going through in the Tyler Robinson case right now to get a preliminary hearing moved to a trial. That's even more probable cause. Once you're in trial, there are 3, depending on what kind of law you're doing. And compellingness is defined and is mutually constitutive according to what level of law you're at. There's a lower civil standard, that's preponderance.
Look,
there's a higher civil standard that's clear and convincing, and the highest standard is jury standard, which you know. You keep trying to interrupt. That's no.
You've talked at greater length than me, right? Like what I'm saying is you keep going off on sort of this, well, this is the standards. This is reasonable. I agree. Right? No one's arguing that. What we're arguing is proof that these court decisions said compelling is reasonable suspicion. I personally have pulled up Alabama versus White. I've searched the term for compelling. I don't see it. You wouldn't be lying that it says the word compelling in Alabama versus White, would you? That'd be a really bad look. I told you that the
distinction between reasonable suspicion and probable cause is laid out there. And you asked about the investigative predicates.
That's not my question. That's not my question.
Well, I said, you don't get to ask a question when you don't even know the difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause.
That's outrageous. What I asked
you came into a reasonable suspicion debate without even defining the term.
I do want to break us into 1 minute back and forths, or if you guys would prefer 2 minutes. Do you guys have a preference for 1 or 2 minute?
1 minute's fine to start. That's fine.
Okay.
Sure. Who's up first?
My turn.
For 1 minute. Rob will go with you, and then we'll kick it over to Tim for 60 seconds as well.
Okay. So I asked specifically, does this court case say, can you show me a court case that says compelling equals reasonable suspicion? He says, yes, Alabama versus White, right? I go to that court decision, I type in the word compelling, it's not there. And instead, he just starts waxing on about different evidentiary standards of reasonable suspicion. And he says, I walked into a debate in reasonable suspicion. I did not. And I don't understand for someone who's so confident in their case, why you'd be playing these word games. And I think you're lying. I think you're absolutely lying when you said Alabama versus White defines compelling as reasonable suspicion. If I'm wrong, I will apologize. But based on the answer you just gave me when I said I searched and I don't see the term, I think that you're playing clever word games here, and it's beneath you, quite frankly.
Okay, do I get my minute now?
Yeah, you get a full minute. Rob, it sounds like you're ready to see the rest. You got 10 seconds left. Okay, one minute for you, Tim.
Okay, cool. So, what you don't understand, I guess, because you don't understand the terms that you're throwing around, is when you use a term like compelling, this is a relative term to whatever burden of persuasion you're operating under. So compelling just means persuasive evidence, and persuasive evidence is framed by Federal Rule of Evidence 401. Each of the 50 states have their own analogs. And what you didn't understand when you critiqued, I think in the first line of your opening statement, that there's no good reasons, no compelling reasons at the investigative level for me to claim that Israel ought to have its investigation not stymied, but continued. You didn't understand that there are corresponding claims that maybe you weren't familiar with at the time. And the corresponding claims are, what's the investigative predicate? What is the burden of persuasion that goes with the claim, I think that so-and-so ought to have been investigated further? Reasonable suspicion. That's why we're in that room.
Got to kick it over to Rob.
Does that help?
Again, like I don't mind having I don't mind having a conversation on reasonable suspicion. I'm just saying that's not what the debate is. We know that there's a famously very insanely low bar to investigating anything from our federal government, which is the reason that they can investigate Trump and all these people, et cetera, as they did ad nauseum. That's a different question, though, than the idea of is it compelling. Basically, what you're saying is, well, there's reasonable suspicion, so why not investigate? I'll ask you straight up. Do you think that there's compelling reason based on the same standard to investigate the DNC for the murder of Charlie Kirk?
The DNC? No.
Yeah.
Well, Tyler Robinson and an individual leftist? Yes. I think.
Why not the DNC? They have motive.
He's been investigated. Yeah, but I don't think that there's the same axis. And this is why you don't seem to understand the difference between organized versus extemporaneous motivation at law. That the leftists are evil. A lot of them clapped, but this was not a murder by the left. Your militant normies claim that it was a murder by one man, right? So that, and I think that's maybe likely right. In conjunction with a non-extemporaneously motivated party, which would be Israel, and that's what I think needs further investigation. But we're going to have to move beyond. I hope we can move beyond the idea that compelling is a term that's less a term of art than the terms that it is ordered to. And compelling is ordered to the different levels of persuasion that we need to move the legal process forward, from investigation to swearing out a warrant and arrest, to going to prelim, to going to trial, and then at whatever level of trial you're at, civil or criminal, more evidence in both quality and quantity comes directly from that Alabama versus White case.
All right, two things specific. Two things to say here.
We're at the 1 minute. Go ahead, Rob.
Two things to say here. One, no. I think that a reasonable understanding of the terms of this debate was saying compelling basically synonymous with saying convincing. Is there convincing argument or reason to believe that Israel instigated or took place or carried out the murder of Charlie Kirk? You then saying, no, I'm just saying that there's some evidence that exists in some way, which means there should be some level of investigation which proves that it's compelling. It's nonsense. You're adding that term, and when specifically asked, you said it was a legal thing. When asked for a legal document or legal case, you said that compelling was defined in Alabama v. White. I don't see it anywhere, so I think you're trying to play a sleight of hand. Secondly, if we accept, please, I'd let you have your minute, please. You know. Secondly, when it comes to reasonable suspicion, you then like make some sort of, you're like, well, the DNC wouldn't be someone because it would be extemporaneous or something to that. You try to use that term. This makes no sense. Clearly, there's ample motivation or motivation for the DNC and the Democrats as an organization to want Charlie Kirk to not be on college campuses anymore. They're playing Act Blue, anti-Charlie Kirk organizations to go and refute him. Why wouldn't there be reasonable suspicion against the DNC?
Kick it over to Tim for a minute.
All right, so I'm going to move beyond compelling because it's retarded. Compelling just means persuasive. And what you don't understand, should I apologize? I'm sorry you don't understand this basic claim of process, legal process, is that to move the legal process along, there are graduated steps that require different amounts of compelling evidence in both quality and quantity, which is stated in Alabama versus White, in order to move to the next step.
You're running away from the prompt to say there's compelling reason to believe Israel did this, and you're like, that's because I'm just saying that all it has to do is reasonable suspicion. Then
I'm not doing that.
And then I promise I'll be quiet. Then I let you outline over and over what reasonable suspicion is. Then I showed how that would meet tons of countries, and you're just like, no, because.
No, you didn't. The whole debate got stymied because you didn't know basic definitions you should have prepared for. I'm trying to call you back to the prompt because you didn't understand basic legal terms. You were trying, and maybe intentionally, maybe not, to misapply the burden of persuasion standard that accords after you have subpoenas and sworn-in statements and mutual discovery during a jury trial where people give up evidence, prosecution and defense, that they really don't want to because they're forced to under obstruction of justice. And because you didn't understand that fifth grade distinction, I had to go through and attempt to explain to you that the standard is lower. It's not as low as you're now caricaturizing it, but it was significantly lower before a trial begins. When a police arm or an intelligence agency is deciding whether or not to investigate and whether to continue investigating. And I gave you probably a decent but an incomplete definition because you can't take a law class in a debate. And now you're just saying, all countries are as likely as Israel to commit assassination. It's absurd.
That's not what's occurring. So what occurred is you tried to change.
I thought you didn't want to talk meta, bro.
You tried to change the
cross-exam,
right? You tried to change the prompt, right? The prompt doesn't say reasonable suspicious. It says compelling. And you're like, you should have known compelling meant that I would be arguing reasonable suspicion. And you should have looked up and studied for those terms. You even tried to lie when I asked you specifically for a court case because you said the courts have said that compelling means reasonable suspicion. And you said Alabama v. White. I looked up Alabama v. White, and it doesn't say that compelling.
You can't look up a case. It's a 48-page decision. You can't have looked it up. I said.
Let me finish.
The difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause.
Hold on. We'll give you equal time, Tim.
Let me finish. Right. What I did was I brought up the case. I searched the term compelling because I asked you specifically. Name me a case that says compelling equals reasonable suspicion. I'll ask you again. Are you telling me that Alabama v. White defines compelling as reasonable suspicion? Does it even talk about the word compelling?
Compelling is a term of art that applies to every
yes or no,
single okay, can you be quiet now? Because you really don't know and you're ignorant. Compelling is a term that applies to every single case, whether you're at the lowest civil standard, the higher civil standard, or the criminal standard. Compelling just means, I think, that makes it true with whatever relative burden of persuasion we're operating at. Got it? So what I said about Alabama versus White, which you didn't read, you Googled it and looked at it for 30 seconds. It's like a 48-page holding. Is there's a difference between reasonable suspicion and probable cause.
No one disagrees with that. No one disagrees.
Most of the predicables that you are talking about belong to probable cause, which is a much higher standard, and it's a stupid way to proceed. I said
no one disagrees that there's a difference between reasonable, suspicious, and probable cause.
Yeah, but you didn't know what they were.
What I'm talking about specifically is this prompt is there a compelling reason to believe? And you just asserted, let me finish, you asserted with no evidence whatsoever that compelling means reasonable suspicion. When I asked you why, you were like, because the courts have said so. I said, give me a court case that says that. You said Alabama v. White. Are you admitting right now that Alabama v. White does not try to describe the term compelling as reasonable suspicion.
What
Can
I
you just
said
answer
was-
yes or can you
What I
just
said
answer
was
that
there's
yes
an
or no?
investigate-
Can you
because
just
we're
answer that
operating
yes or
outside-
no? Can you
Do
just
you
answer
acknowledge
yes or
that
no
this
to that and
that
then
Israel's
expound?
not on trial?
Why
Do you
can't you
acknowledge
just
Israel's not
answer
on trial?
that? Why
We'll probably
can't
have to
you
hit the
answer that?
closings now so we can get into the super chats and the
Can you
questions.
just answer that question yes or no?
Do you admit that Israel's not on trial? All I was trying to say, and it took me a half hour.
Answer? Why can't you just answer that?
Can you stop yelling? Your voice is
I'll talk
sending
exactly
all
how
the dogs
I
running
want.
in my neighborhood.
You ain't my dad.
No, I said
Right, Candy Sport?
Alabama versus White stands for the proposition at law. It's a
That's
Supreme
not the
Court
question
case.
asked.
The distinction
Repeating your
between
answer-
reasonable
you're
suspicion
repeating
and
your
probable
answer where you
cause.
repeating your
hear you.
non-answer isn't answering the question.
It's not
when
an
asked
answer.
again.
You just didn't know what the terms
Why
meant,
can't
and you were
you
trying to
answer?
misapply them.
Does Alabama v. White specifically use the term compelling and try to describe that
It
as reasonable?
presupposes the term compelling.
Does it use the
and
word
it uses
compelling?
them reasonable
Does it
suspicion
use the word compelling
as a distinction
anywhere?
from probable
Does it use the
cause.
word compelling anywhere in that decision?
Okay,
Can
so
you just say
now that
no,
we're
but I
past
think
that,
it presupposes it? Can you just say that?
do you think that this is an investigative
can't you
burden of
answer the
persuasion
question?
or
Why
a
can't
criminal
you
law
answer the
burden of
question?
persuasion?
Why can't you answer the question?
What's the burden of? Because
Do you guys want to do closings or go straight to the questions?
I don't
Because I feel
understand.
like we're circling a
Why
drain
can't he
here.
just answer? Tim, this is pathetic. Just say no. It doesn't use the word compelling, but it
No,
presupposes.
I didn't say that the word compelling is defined in this case. Because you don't know, because you're ignorant. So you didn't understand that compelling doesn't apply specifically to the highest burden of proof at law. Compelling
No one
applies,
said it does.
Compelling means persuasive, and it applies to all of the different burdens of persuasion at their relative level. And that's why I said, okay, so what level are we at with regard to Israel? What does it take to be compelling?
Well, just
it takes reasonable suspicion because all we're arguing about is investigation.
Last thing. So just to be clear, your answer is no. It doesn't say compelling. It just presupposes.
I don't know. I didn't scan it for that. That wasn't the point, and it was never the point.
So then when
it has nothing to do with the claim at stake.
If I
don't know. I literally
last point. If we bring up the clip earlier where I say, can you show me where the courts have defined compelling as that? And you say, yes, Alabama v. White. That's going to look pretty foolish for you.
Do you want to know what I meant?
Show me the link where there's some sort of Supreme Court decision or some sort of legalese that says the word compelling means reasonable suspicion or higher. Show me that.
Okay. Alabama versus White. Do you want to know what I meant?
I know what you're trying to spin.
Saying that you didn't understand any of these terms because you didn't understand the distinction at the lowest level between reasonable suspicion, one step up, thin probable cause, another step up, thick probable cause, another step up, preponderance of the evidence. The fifth step is clear and convincing evidence. The final step, the most evidence to win, to be compelling, is beyond a reasonable doubt. Compelling wasn't what was at odds. The burden of persuasion was. So I thought I would try to explain that to you. And then you said, well, is compelling being defined in the case? That was never my claim.
Show me the link where there's some sort of Supreme Court decision or some sort of legalese that says the word compelling means reasonable suspicion or higher. Show me that.
Okay. Alabama versus White. I said there's actually a Supreme Court case where they distinguish what you need to constitute reasonable suspicion. And that's investigative, and Israel definitely hits that. Probable cause is higher, and it probably wouldn't hit that yet.
What you keep doing is you keep referencing something that's not in dispute. The topic
that's absolutely in dispute.
The topic is there compelling reason to believe Israel is involved in the murder of Charlie Kirk? And you're like, well, there's different levels between reasonable suspicion and probable cause. I'm like, that's interesting.
Yes,
that has nothing to do with whether or not there's a compelling case. And you're like, yeah, it does. The courts say that. And I'm like, can you show me? And you're like, yeah. And then when I'm like, I don't think it's saying that there. And you're like, oh, I never said it did.
Okay, can I make an analogy?
I'm going to finish. I just let you talk. I'll finish my point and then you can go. Right. The truth is what we see is that you're unable to defend it. There is an incredibly low burden to just investigate. They did that. They looked into foreign countries and foreign nexuses. Right. All you did was what everyone does. You didn't provide any evidence whatsoever that Israel was involved with this other than to say they've assassinated people in the past. They were mad at Charlie Kirk.
September 10th, Charlie's assassinated at UVU. The 18th, Netanyahu issues a bizarre preemptive declaration that he and Israel didn't kill Charlie Kirk. And then finally we come to
the point is, as he continues to interrupt me to try to get me up my train of thought, the point that I was trying to make is that there's no evidence to compellingly believe that Israel did this just because there's motivations. Let's ask some more specific questions so you can get a problem with the timeline. Tim, did you say that it was unprompted when Netanyahu put out his September 18th video saying I didn't assassinate? Was that the term you used, unprompted?
I think I said peremptory. The 18th, Netanyahu issues a bizarre preemptive declaration.
Peremptory, implying that he wasn't responding to something before him. Preempt means say something before, correct?
Yeah, say something before he was formally accused. Yes.
Do you acknowledge that he was being accused within 24 hours and that on Newsmax on September 12th, Greta Van Susteren asked him about the litany of conspiracy theories? That was 6 days before this video. Do you acknowledge that?
I guess if you say so, I'll take it.
Would that mean that it's not peremptory then?
Thing.
Would that mean it's not peremptory then?
It's the word is peremptory. And no, I meant it in a different context. See, there are contexts for words. In that sense, you're right. Then it wouldn't be peremptory. The
what context did
in
you
which
mean
I uttered the phrase was that no one had formally accused him, and it was strange that everyone seemed to know that he would say something the day after. The day of, everyone knew he would give a statement. That's what's strange.
So no one formally accused him. So explain to me, he was just informally accused. What would a formal accusation look like?
No, he wasn't informally accused either. People were speculating that Israel did it because it's somewhat obvious that they're suspect number one. Everyone around the world thinks so. So he had to respond to it. We make the same claim in Roman Catholicism all the time. Pope Paul VI came out, and one of the first things he said as Pope is, "I'm not gay," because everyone thought he was gay. So that is a kind of, again, investigative predicate that holds water with people that are looking for the truth.
I think that again, you misstate things. I don't know if you're doing it intentionally. I suspect you are. I just want to be clear. Your argument is, quote, no one accused. They just asked it. No one said Israel did this prior to September 18th. That's your argument.
I didn't make an argument. I called
that's your claim.
Netanyahu's. I called his statement, Israel didn't do this, peremptory, because no one had dragged him into a courtroom.
Okay, just to cut you off, that's not what you just said.
Jokinut, F6I for 5. If your case is viable, you wouldn't need to lie. Netanyahu didn't preemptively deny responsibility. Israel was instantly being accused with zero evidence.
No, he peremptorily denied responsibility.
Define what that means.
It's an audience evidently illiterate as Rob, but there's a difference between preemptively and peremptorily.
You originally said preemptive, and can you define
I said peremptory.
Can you define what peremptory means again?
Yeah, I already did, and I'm not going to fuck around with this.
Explain how it was peremptory.
But I did all along. I never even said preempt. I said peremptory, and you just didn't know the word.
We'll be able to go back and see it. You said preemptive.
The 18th, Netanyahu issues a bizarre preemptive declaration. I said peremptory.
No, you originally said preemptive. And you got caught, so you said a different word. You know what this reminds me of?
There's a 1 in 5. I'll give it this. There's a 1 in 4 chance that you're right, but I remember saying peremptory. I think I did. So
it's like
it doesn't
Mike,
tend to show anything material to the debate, but that would be one little score, and I still think that it's unlikely.
Mike, have you ever watched The Waterboy?
But I want to give that one to you, man, because you need it bad, and your shirt is crying out to heaven.
So there's this scene in The Waterboy where the one dude's in the stand, and he goes, "This is the best linebacker I've seen since Joe Montana." And the guy says, "Joe Montana was a quarterback." And he goes,
said Joe Montana.
I said Joe Montana.
Best tackler I've seen since Joe Montana.
Joe Montana was a quarterback, you idiot.
I said Joe Montana.
That's Tim here. I didn't say peremptory. I said peremptory. Of course, that word doesn't even make sense in the context of that. But that's what I said. That's what I said.
It does make
Joe
sense.
Montana.
No, I think there's going to be tons of clips from this.
Rob,
debate.
go do a watch,
not
bro.
lying. Cool. All right. Kenny Stacks says for 10, Blakenet from TPUSA, quote, we also don't need the text because Charlie literally talked about the danger of the violent left on video on Bill Maher, end quote. Didn't even claim them. No positive evidence.
Yeah,
So-
Charlie talked all the time that he was afraid that the left was going to murder him. He talked about it quite frequently. There's never been a public example of him saying he was worried that Israel was going to murder him.
Well, there is a public example. There's public examples of him being afraid of both Israel murdering him. That was a more recent development. And that you just
Show me. I haven't seen that. That's crazy.
August the 13th.
Here, Tim, you
Okay,
can
there's more
defend this
evidence.
super chat. That way we don't go off into the areas where it's not relevant to the next question, and I can get through these a little faster because this supports your claim, I believe.
I thought we both got to respond.
You do, but we're spending too much time, and so I don't want to have to cut into each answer to get to the next one. But right now I have to, just to keep things on track. I apologize.
All right, why did he get to respond first? That's all I'm asking.
That one wasn't necessarily directed, but you could just kind of jump in.
Respond and you cut me off.
Well, I couldn't predict who was going to talk first, Tim. I'm sorry. But go ahead, finish. Just keep it short. I wanted to read this because it supports your claim, and then you could defend it.
30 seconds.
There's public evidence that Charlie feared both Israel would kill him very lately and the left would kill him, but more throughout his entire career. It's factually wrong to say otherwise. There's evidence he was afraid of both, and that's my theory, by the way.
You said Charlie said.
Wait. This is something for you to riff off of towards Rob here, Tim. Major Matt 79 for 10 says, "Hi all, is this an honest debate? Do we brush off the fact Netanyahu offered Charlie over $150 million to take TPUSA to the next level? A lot of people lost money not taking that money." So
Okay. Two things. One, I'd like Tim to answer this. He said Charlie Kirk said on the 13th publicly he was afraid Israel was going to kill him. Please provide me a link to that. I am unaware of any time that Charlie Kirk publicly said he was afraid Israel was going to kill him. The only thing I'm aware of is Harrison Smith saying an anonymous person told him that's what Charlie was thinking. So if Tim has different evidence, happy to take it. Secondly, the question of Netanyahu offering $150 million. I'm not sure that that's actually accurate, that specifically happened. But I can't say that it didn't, so let's operate under the assumption that's true. That just once more speaks to a possible motive, right? That, again, I don't know how to say this, right? Like, I'm not disputing the fact that, especially near the end, that there were people associated with that were having some sort of falling out. That doesn't prove we need some form of evidence that show that they were involved with this. Tyler Robinson talking to other people, foreigners, something to that effect. Just saying like, well, there was motive. Again, there was more motive for lefties, for trans people, for Act Blue, for Democratic organizations, etc., to want Charlie dead. And yet no one's saying, oh, well, that means there's compelling reason to say that they instigated the death of Charlie Kirk. So again, what we need, it's not enough to just speak to motive. But I anxiously awaiting Tim providing the evidence of Charlie publicly saying that Israel was going to kill him.
And, Mike, wasn't that question for me? You said it was for me, and then Loudmouth just starts talking.
It was for me.
It wasn't a question to anyone. It said, is this an honest debate? Do we brush off the fact Netanyahu offered Charlie over $150 million? What I was saying is I'm going to read this one to get us through the chats, and two, because I think it's something that you would be able to defend or works towards your side's argument. Rob did. I'm gonna be honest, Rob, you did kind of derail the question subject there specifically. But it was relevant still. It's just that was something that I think would work in your argument's corner, Tim, is that they're claiming that offer to take TPUSA to the next level was a big part.
Can I respond to it? You said
what
you
Rob's
originally
was.
premised it as here's something for you, Tim.
Yes, I do realize that. But it was for you to defend if you think that plays into Rob's question of what evidence there is that Israel
I
is
listed
involved.
a full timeline of it, and then he denied that there was a published statement on August 13th of Charlie Kirk, double hearsay of Charlie Kirk.
Oh, so it wasn't Charlie. Got it.
No, it was Charlie Kirk.
You said
at the
Charlie
beginning
publicly
of the chain
said.
of evidence. Can you be quiet? Can you ever shut your mouth?
Do I
do
want
you ever
to?
do
Is
it?
The question.
Do you ever shut your mouth at least from speaking? Mm-hmm. Okay, so there was a published statement accruable to Charlie Kirk via double hearsay. It was published August 13th after he made it because it was filtered through two very close sources to him. With regard to the state, Bibi Netanyahu offering him big bucks to take TPUSA to the next level, they'd already taken him through direct action and through their donors to the tune of $6.5 million. The Marcus Foundation, $281,000. Michael and Andrea Levin Foundation, $250,000. Laura and Isaac Perlmutter Foundation, $7.8 million. Jack Roth Charitable Foundation, all Jewish supergroups. And BP was going to take them to what, 10, 11 figures? Because they have more money than Croesus. So, yeah, the fact that he was offering Charlie this deal, Mafia offers you a further favor, and instead of saying, no, I don't want further favors, I'm just walking away, that's when you get whacked. And that's precisely the kind of setup that Bergman talks about in the Western-specific TAOs that get Israel.
Real quick before
So
Rob responds.
I'll get the last one this real quick.
Yeah,
so
you can, but real quick, a lot of
every
people
time I'm
lost.
gonna
I do it to both of you. He just complained to me a second ago that I cut him off. The end of that was a lot of people lost money not taking that money. Do you agree with that, Tim? And then we'll let Rob ask his question.
I mean, I think Israel lost. There was an opportunity cost. I'm not sure if it was money to Israel.
I think it's talking about the people in TPUSA who would have benefited from taking that 150 million. Maybe they were mad that Charlie walked away from that deal because they didn't benefit. Is what the question's insinuating.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I mean they've made a lot more over the last year. So I'd have to think about that one. But right. I definitely I don't think TPUSA necessarily instigated that. I mean, that's a whole different prompt.
Hey,
but
so you were
Israel
mistaken.
Was pissed.
You were mistaken when you said Charlie publicly said he thought Israel was going to kill him. You were mistaken?
No, I was not.
Okay, mistaken. Show me where Charlie said that publicly.
Yeah, August the 13th. Just go look at it.
Okay, so just to be clear, he said that publicly.
It's a publication of a statement.
No, that's not Charlie. Do you know what saying something publicly means?
Yeah, published means it's made known to more than two people in the room. That's the legal definition.
That he said something publicly
it was published
for the public to hear. There's never been a public example of him saying he was worried that Israel was going to murder him.
Well, there is a public example. There's public examples of him being afraid of both Israel murdering him. So there was a published statement accruable to Charlie Kirk via double hearsay. It was published August 13th.
No,
see, this is why you're stupid,
the argument
man. This is why you're
published.
Stupid. You want to argue the difference between he said it before August 13th and then through double hearsay it was published later, and he said it on August 13th. You knew what the fuck I was talking about, so don't be dumb. Don't do that. You just look stupid.
I know what you're doing, but I want the audience to see what you're doing. You're trying to slip in things to say that
statement of Charlie's fear.
I gave you your chance to answer. Notice how I almost never
interrupt. You didn't give me shit, man. You talked the entire time with your fat mouth.
And then, I thought we weren't calling names. Dude, what took you so long in the bathroom? Had to adjust that butt plug?
Are you your mouth?
Don't worry about it, big man.
Maybe in your case.
To my point. I'm going to get to my point. The point is, Charlie Kirk never publicly said, as you claim, that Israel's going to kill him. Instead, what we have is hearsay that someone said, anonymous, that Charlie was fearful. But Charlie never publicly said this. You use the word publicly. No, we don't get to move on because I'm making a point to show that you're a liar. You're going to sit there quietly and let me get my position out. You want to mislead people and act like this was something Charlie publicly said. Even in the best of interpretations, if we think that someone told Harrison Smith this was accurate, that's still not Charlie publicly saying anything.
Is
and
you
have no evidence that that's
they
what
care
Charlie
about
thought.
These kind of fat distinctions that you're fat
they
sweating
do
distinctions.
Care about you lying and misleading.
Are they this fucking retarded? They don't
care about
everyone
you
knows
lying
it's
and
the Harrison Smith tweet. You know it's
You're
the Harrison
the one,
Smith tweet, so why are you wasting
you
everyone's time, man? Look, bro, it's like 11:30. Go to the next question, can we?
Yeah. Yep.
You drone on and then get upset when I prove you're lying.
You drone on and on.
Let me move on to the next question.
Dear brothers and sisters, in our continuing catechesis on the 10 Commandments, we now turn to the 8th commandment. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor. The Catechism of the Catholic Church explains that this commandment forbids misrepresenting the truth in our relations with others. We are called to be truthful, not only in our words, but in our entire way of acting towards others. Our ultimate model in this regard is Jesus himself. He is the truth in person, who at his trial before Pilate revealed that he came into this world to testify to the truth. In the mystery of his life, death, and resurrection, he disclosed the deepest meaning of our life on earth and invited us to share in his divine life. His gift of the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth, enables us to become adoptive sons and daughters of our Heavenly Father and to dwell in his love as brothers and sisters. The eighth commandment bids us live this new life to the full, and thus to bear true witness to God's saving love made incarnate in the humanity of Christ our Lord.